Welcome to today's virtual collaborative. We created this space and these virtual collaborative experiences in response to the questions that so many of you were asking as we were faced with an unprecedented time in education and the start of this pandemic. We heard your questions being asked across the country. Questions like, what does virtual learning look like? And how do I know if I'm doing virtual teaching well? Or how do I get better at teaching in this virtual space? You also asked questions like, how do we do virtual tutorials? And what does fun look like? Or how do we keep culturally relevant teaching practices alive in our virtual classrooms? Into those questions with you. We worked through together, and we are so thrilled to be here now in this place, Teacher Appreciation Week, wrapping up the end of a school year unlike any other, and closing down shop our virtual collaborative as we finish out this first season of these virtual collaborative experiences. Today, as a special treat for you, we are just going to celebrate being a teacher, celebrate being an educator. We're going to hear some phenomenal stories. We're going to cry together. Maybe we'll laugh together. And we're just going to celebrate the fact that we are teachers and we have superpowers. Sorry. And I might be emotional today. That's cool too. So with that, I just have to say, thank you for being here. Learning happens because of you. Our students go into the world and do phenomenal things because of you. And let's start by hearing from a couple of students now to just remind us of the impact that we make. Take a look at these AVID alumni.
I want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart. Anything that I can do to give back to AVID right now in the future, I'm always going to be a phone call away.
So I want to give a big thank you to Mrs. Morgan, Mr. Campillo, and Mr. Johnson for not only being my AVID teachers, but my mentors during my AVID journey.
So thank you to AVID. Thank you to all my teachers in AVID. You guys make dreams come true.
Throughout my 4 years at Kaiser High School, we heard Mr. Unger share over and over again how before he retired, he wanted to get someone into Harvard. And I want to share that at the end of this month, he will retire from 40 plus years of teaching. And I feel very, very blessed that I was able to help and fulfill his bucket list of getting one of his students into Harvard. So Mr. Unger, this is a small thank you token for all the work, impact that you have done for me and for thousands of other students throughout your 40 plus years of teaching. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Donato Fornabayo from Curtis High School, Staten Island, and Miss Elise Oliveri from Staten Island. You guys were wonderful, and you're still wonderful friends that, I'll forever cherish. Thank you.
So not only do our AVID alumni remind us of the impact that we're making, but we also have people working at AVID who were once students, and they have had some sort of educator impact. They believe that they are the people they are today because there was a teacher or two or more who really made a difference in their life. So we're going to spend some time just hearing a couple of stories from folks around AVID Center, sharing their experience with teachers that have made a difference in their life as they say thank you to them and also to you for the work that you're doing. We're going to kick off our round of appreciation for educators with Dr. Sandy Husk, the CEO of AVID, and we're following that with a couple of more stories. Please stay with us, and you might want to grab some Kleenex. Here we go, Dr. Sandy Husk.
My name's Sandy Husk, and I'm the CEO of AVID, and it is Teacher Appreciation Week, and I would like to appreciate a teacher that I had a long time ago. Her name was Carolyn Vaughn, and she was my French teacher, and I want to send her appreciation because even though I was not very good at French, she had a huge impact on my life. She believed in me. She gave me great opportunities to actually think about going into teaching. I ended up holding some small lessons for elementary kids in French towards the end of my high school experience. And she was somebody that was much more than the content. She was very connected to who we were as students. And I want to share that with you because across this nation, there are kids, young adults that are sending you very heartfelt appreciation. They know that you're there for them, even when you're driving by their house and the wonderful parades I see on TV, or if you're emailing them or calling them or seeing them on a Zoom call. They know that you're there for them. They know that it's a really hard time for teachers to be taking care of their own families, and we know that as well. So from AVID and from our homes to yours, we say thank you. We really appreciate you. Hang in there.
So my name is Mira Gobel. I am Associate Senior Region Director for California, Hawaii, and Western Region. I have officially joined the AVID family almost 2 years ago now. And it was because of the AVID's mission that it struck a chord with what I believe to be my calling in life is to be a champion for underserved students. So let me tell you a little bit about that. I believe that teachers' superpower is that they are the label busters. When I was born in a small farming community outside of Seoul, South Korea. The moment that I was born, I was given a label as an Amerasian child. That label meant that I was going to be a social outcast, underrepresented, and you can keep tagging along all the labels that it was going to define my future and who I was supposed to be. It was education. It was the teachers who helped me bust those labels and really ignite the spark in my heart to become who I was meant to be. And I had a choice that I got to define, and I couldn't have done that without teachers in my life. And I remember one teacher, I'm going to go way back to when I was in Korea. My 7th grade teacher, who was really hard on me, but she shaped me and said, nobody gets to make you feel inferior, and you get to take charge of who you are. And those are kind of unheard of in Korea. So there's one teacher that I remember who just became this, like a lighter fluid into this little bit of passion spark that I had in my heart. And that's when I decided that I wanted to be a teacher, because she changed the course of my life. And I know I believe that teachers are special people who are put on this earth to be a trusting source for the most vulnerable. That's our children. And I don't know there is anything more special than that kind of power. So I want to thank you for, one, changing my life trajectory with your commitment and with your amazing fuel, that you continue to do that. So from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you. And for me and for my kids and all the children of tomorrow's, and I am so honored to be in this profession where I get to support you. So thank you. Thank you. It's my heart.
Hi, my name is April Mouton. I currently serve as a program manager in the Central Region, Southern area for AVID Center. Today, I'm just going to share a little bit about what student agency means to me, and to thank our teachers for just doing all the hard work that they're doing. Cultivating student agency and students is the why and the passion behind AVID, as well as simply good teaching. When I think back to the powerful educators in my life, it was this cultivation that made me sit a little taller in my seat, take on more rigorous coursework, fuel my passion for social justice, and begin to see my own internal beauty. As a military child, I moved around a lot in my primary grades, and it was difficult to make connections. But I'll never forget my 3rd grade teacher, Mr. Kendig, who introduced me to Kill a Mockingbird. After reading that book, it fueled and inspired me that I too could be a lawyer or an attorney or fight for social justice. In junior high, Miss Taylor was the first teacher that I ever had that looked like me. She held her head high despite derogatory comments that came from both classmates and parents. Also in junior high, Mr. Wasserman demonstrated vulnerability by sharing his scars that he received as a young child from a hate crime. It also showed me how to rise above hate. So teachers, you do way more than just teach us how to read and write. You inspire us to be better. Thank you for all that you do.
I think about a teacher named Mr. Burns, who was my middle school science teacher, who really introduced me to a love of science to the point of it was what I majored in college, and really had a passion for it, and brought me to really seeing myself now I can say this now, as a scholar. For me, growing up, I was always a decent student. I never saw myself as a great student. But he was the first person that really put a concerted effort into my understanding of science and really reached out to me to try and make science connect to me. One of the specific things I remember is that we were studying genetics, and he was Gregoire Mendel. And he dressed the part of a monk and did not break character for 2 weeks as we did the lesson. And looking back, that dedication was very, very important to me. I mean, it really struck me. And looking back on it, just that whole piece that he did that, it was really impressive. But among I think him being skilled as a teacher and just being highly engaging, I think it was his effort to try and connect with me that I remember the most, because he really put a concerted effort to connect with me. I was a very shy kid. I didn't really talk much. And he really cracked me open into finding out what I was really interested in, and knowing that I like marine life and things like that, and really made an effort to connect with me. And I think about teachers really seeing that as their responsibility. And I really saw him seeing that as his responsibility of, I need to connect with him so that I can engage him and build a relationship with him and teach him. And because of that, I gained a passion in science, and actually really almost with a career in science, but I actually taught science. I would say he's a main reason why I taught middle school science when I came into education. So that's an appreciation I have for Mr. Burns, wherever he is. I'd just like to thank him for his gratitude, and thank all teachers who do that for their students, and understand that that makes a difference in terms of really trying to connect with your students and finding a way to connect to your students, and not letting those barriers get in the way.
When I was in high school, in my sophomore year, I became an emancipated minor, and I did not live with any parents anymore at that point. And as an emancipated minor, I thought it was the best thing in the world, because nobody has to call you in if you're out of school. There isn't somebody to call in and excuse your absence. You can excuse yourself. So I excused myself a lot from school, mostly because in my mind, school, the way it was playing out for me, was irrelevant, and it was not meaningful for me. And there was a lot of what I deemed busy work in terms of it creating anything that I could connect to my life that was helpful. And I was smart, and I was pretty savvy. I could manipulate the circumstances well enough in my favor to get the kind of grades I wanted, because I could go in and do the kinds of things, the final projects or the assessment or whatever, and get it done with basically not being there for the most part. So for me, I was in no way invested in what was happening for me on my high school campus until I was a senior. Actually, I guess it was the end of my junior year. So I had this counselor Mr. Harvey Royer, who is an amazing human being. And at that time in my life, he would not let go of me. And he would try to convince me that I needed to be at school. And he used all the regular ways, you try to convince why it's responsible to be here, why it's compliant to be here, how we have a mandatory school system. And none of that really did it for me. I didn't have to be there. I could make it work. And he was like a dog with a bone. He would not let it go. And I think it might have been his personal mission to figure out how to engage me. So when I was registering for classes for my senior year, he convinced me to take an elective class that I can't remember the name of the actual class, but what came with that class was being part of a club called DECA, which is Distributive Education Clubs of America, I think. Very dry title. Anyway, that class and that teacher, Linda Doty, became a place where I finally found relevance. I saw something that was different from what I already knew, and it made me have to pay attention and think and figure out whether or not this content was going to be helpful for me in my life. And so I engaged. And then what became part of that engagement was actually competing. And there were these local and then national competitions that we would go to compete around knowing things in merchandising and business and so on and so forth. Anyway, I had success there. I had success competing, and I found just a place where it felt like I belonged, and what I was contributing was useful and important to the team as a group. And I'd never had that. I never played a team sport. I didn't have that experience. My growing up as a kid was too dysfunctional, just didn't have those normal things. So they made it normal. And this combination of this counselor and this teacher, in their mission to have me find a reason to be there at school, helped me find a reason to believe in my own capacity to go out and do something. It wasn't that I wasn't self-confident. I had self-confidence, but I didn't have any idea how to leverage it. And they helped me figure out how to do that with something. And it didn't mean necessarily that was what I was going to do my whole life, but it gave me something to hold on to. So, and it turns out our case just as a cliffhanger, we did compete nationally. We did win. I won. We ended up traveling to Florida and having a whole experience there that was like nothing I'd ever had a chance to do with teammates. And so it was a great way to capstone a year in high school that I probably had the most attendance in ever of all of my 4 years of high school. So I thank Linda Doty and Harvey Royer for doing that way back. This is my year of celebrating my 40th graduating year. So 40 years ago, these people made that difference for me. So thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Terra Boyko, and I am a K-12 program manager with AVID Center. I teach. What's your superpower? Who would have thought that my 8th grade English teacher's superpower were her long red fingernails? Yes, her fingernails. I can still hear her and see her flick her nails and say, we need to activate your neurons and grow your dendrites. Let's grow our dendrites. We believed her, and we would do the same. But before we entered the classroom, she would stand at the door and greet each one of us as an individual, and always with a term of endearment. She taught in a way that made sense to each student, and if we didn't understand, she would take the time to ask the questions. What helps you learn? And how can I make this connect for you? I fondly remember how she would use hand signals and nonverbal cues to assess and check for our understanding, like when she used the traffic light reference. We, again, would flick our fingers like green lights. just like green lights if we understood. She would know that we understood and we could proceed with the lesson. I'm a very visual tactile learner, and her deliberate gestures help me stay engaged. She also taught us to use our voice, not only in conversation, but within our writing as well. Always be your true you, she would say. She fostered self-advocacy that fueled our class as independent, deep learners. She encouraged and respected our perspective and honored us as partners in our learning. I still feel a little choked up thinking about it. She shaped me and many others to be professionals in the real world and to always give our best so that we could be productive citizens. I remember how she treated us, just like it was yesterday, because of the powerful imprint that she had on my life. She was such an awesome teacher, a mentor, and now a lifelong friend. So when I think about amazing teachers and their superpowers, like Miss Bose and her fingernails, I think about teachers who build and cultivate student agency, empowering their students to strive for success through purposeful action. Marvelous educators make the content culturally relevant, clear, captivating, and challenging so that students can own their learning. In my years of teaching, I would always tell my students to seek meaning and act with purpose. I want to thank all teachers with my whole heart for the work that you do and will continue to do for all students. And educators, I leave you with these questions. How can you find the Miss Bose in you? How are you going to connect with your students in your next digital lesson? And what are you going to do to plan for intentional engagement? Right now, you are teaching into a cyberspace of young minds. So always remember, your impact on students is lifelong.
So I consider myself extremely fortunate because I'm one of those individuals that has had access to just some incredible educators in my life. And the one that comes to mind immediately is my third grade ELL teacher. She did so much for my sister and I in terms of making sure that we had access to all the right tools and resources in order for us to be successful. But she really went above and beyond in terms of feeding my natural curiosity for all things technical and science related. She picked me up early in the morning, so before the bus route started, so that I had an opportunity to attend Young Astronaut Camp, stayed after school with me and provided supplies and materials in order for me to get projects completed. You know, all things that she didn't need to do and was not a part of her job description, but all things that were needed in order to support somebody like myself in order for me to be successful and for me to be where I am today. The second person I often think of is my keyboarding teacher, Mira Frank. She was my keyboarding teacher at a time when keyboarding was transitioning from typewriters to computers. And computers just showed up one day and she had no idea on how to set up the computer lab. And yet she had enough trust and confidence in me to hand me the manual and give me the freedom to experiment and play with setting up the computer lab. And I often think about the courage that she had in handing me that kind of equipment and that kind of responsibility. And I often think about without that experience and without her trust and confidence, somebody like myself who grew up in low-income housing otherwise would not have had access to that kind of equipment or technology to use. I've been extremely fortunate, as I mentioned earlier, to have had access to all of these folks. and for them to support me in the way that they have. I truly would not be where I am today without them and without their love and support. And so from the bottom of my heart, thank you to all of you for doing what you do each and every single day so that kids like myself could be successful.
Wow. So if there's anything that we've learned from this pandemic, and we've learned a lot, I think that what we will carry forward is that a school is more than a place where we go. It's something we create, and it's created by educators as we do the things that all of these brilliant people described. We are label busters. We cultivate student agency. We help students believe in their own internal beauty and see their own internal beauty, and also see themselves as scholars. We engage and connect with students because that is our responsibility. We don't let barriers get in the way. We make content and learning fun and relevant and meaningful. We believe in students before they believe in themselves, and we cultivate agency. So, as we wrap up this season of the Virtual Collaborative, we just want to say thank you for doing what you do for students across the country. We are following your stories, we're following your successes. We want to hear about you, so don't forget to share your AVID fam stories and your Why We Teach stories, and we're in this with you together because we are better together. So on behalf of the entire Virtual Collaborative team, we say thank you and be well.